Hello Blender folks, welcome back. I'm epistemic-gnomes and we are continuing our rigging stuff in Blender, and hope you're doing fine. Good week, I hope for everyone. Here for me it's been quite good. So I was making mount rigging and I intend to continue, of course. Hold on, this sound is too loud here. But I was urged with an experiment that I needed to do, and it doesn't really relate to the mount rigging problem, but it's a proof of concept. I've just made one of an old problem I wanted to investigate. So imagine this as an eyelids rig, right? So what's happening here is that the mesh, there's this multitude of deformed bones here, and they are, I used auto waves from, it will be much better in this case. So it's like we set all these bones to some rest position. In this case it was snapping, okay, so I've snapped them on edit mode to that other object, this supposedly eye surface, right? So all this thing, yes, so these bones are snapped into it. This mesh was also snapped, but only the inner part, right? So this is not new. This is, for me, this is what I've already did for the mesh for this sorry, oh, I've lost, oh no, I need to reopen. Accidentally closed the, okay, it's still going on. Sorry folks, never happened that I misclicked and closed the thing here. So let's go back. I just wanted to be here and look at the chat. Alright, so this is not new for me because I have already made an eyelids rig. I have a tutorial, integrated eyes rig, whatever, is too long, but doesn't matter. What I mean here is that all this stuff here, I was trying to reproduce the features of that rig with a very different system. Not very different, but actually, so the concept is the same. We have the eyelids mesh, it's all the same, all connected. So you have a eyelids border, which is here, it goes inside. Then the eyelids mesh is around here, okay? So part of it is well, this colored mesh here should be snapped right to the surface using this snap, then space project, then include non-edited, because the eye surface is not this mesh I'm selecting, is some mesh behind, right? It's another object and we need to snap this actively. And actually, if we have multi-selections, we also need to project individual elements, so we snap everything all at once. So apparently that last face loop is not snapping. We'll see what, so now it's snapped. Alright, so we fix, no, actually this is just showing how it works, right? And then there is this eyelids border, which is not just, well, I've made a subdivision here, but it's not required. So basically it's just go, but because of the subdivisions, it's kind of helps. So yeah, so that's why then we see the skin appears on another material. So on that proof of concept that I did that today, a couple of hours ago, and the difference, there are many differences from my other rig I'll show in a moment, is that the eyelids rig here should be dynamic. So if I pose these bones here, they all move in sync. So this will be sort of a simulation or emulation of spline skinning. You see, smooth deforms. So spline skinning I've used for my original Eyelids rig on the tutorial. Bendy bone splines, sorry. So bendy bone splines. It could be done, however, with spline key bone constraints, so another spline skinning method in Blender. Bendy bones do not export outside of Blender for other projects, and spline skinning method doesn't necessarily work on every outside CG software. For example, I know game engine Unity, I've learned it only uses linear blend skinning, LBS, and Blender has LBS, but Blender also has dual quaternion skinning, has also got spline skinning, and bendy bones use spline skinning. Spline IK bone constraint use spline skinning, but bendy bones are inbuilt stuff for Blender. It don't work elsewhere. So if I'm working a Blender rig with bendy bones, they won't work. I think even if I make an animation, a keyframe, I bake the animation and I export, of course what matters for outdoor projects like game engines would be the armature, the mesh of course, but the deforming method, the skinning method, it depends on what the game engine in that case would have available. So according to what I've read in Unity's site, it tells it just has linear blend skinning. So there's advantage in doing this, although I think it's not say more complicated, it's a different method. It's annoying because auto waves, not so auto waves, but we have to set those things. So what I have here is that I have a collection of, I have sets of these multiple deforming bones. So yeah, we need a lot of bones probably to have smooth deform. So this is the way to, one way to emulate spline skinning in Blender, and the advantage is this is pure LBS, linear blend skinning. So there's no, I'm not relying on any additional extra feature, CG extra feature. So that means for skinning, and so this means that if I have this keyframed in an animation and baked, the deforms of the mesh are only based on, of course, the armature modifier and the wave paint on linear blend skinning. So that's like pretty straightforward. Here what I have here is that, for example, okay, there's a shrink wrap bone constraint, and this was the proof of concept because on my original rig I've used for Eyelids, I was using not shrink wrap bone constraint, which affects the armature, right, including a deformed bone. This is why this is interesting. I can shrink wrap, I'm shrink wrapping the deformed bones themselves to that surface. On my original rig, however, I was using an object modifier. We don't see here. Okay, let me load it so we can find it out. It's 3D characters. Okay, this is where I was working on the mount rig, but I can use this to show. It's the last version of my working character. Then OC. Then here for the eyes rig. Okay, so let's show these things. Alright, so what I have here is that the mesh itself has a shrink wrap, many shrink wrap object modifiers, right? Shrink wrap modifier, so that the eyelids mesh, not any bone actually, but the eyelids mesh, which is hard to see now, everything is on the way, but I can just hide these eyelashes. Okay, now we see the eyelids mesh here, these seams here. This is the eyelids mesh. It is shrink wrapping the mesh itself on a particular vertex group is shrink wrapped to the eye surface. However, object modifiers, they are not exported in OBS, they are applied, and so this functionality will die off. For example, in a game engine, unless a game engine, I don't know, would have some feature that could mimic this for vertex groups including, so like reconstructing this. So there's a disadvantage here that the object modifier, although great, because it simplifies my work, so I don't have to shrink wrap bones, no, just shrink wrap the mesh itself. But then it loses versatility for exporting projects. This is not the case for this character, this project, so I don't care. But technically it's very interesting, because if there are some times we are involved or maybe involved with project, how would I solve this shrink wrapping? Well, then I've made the proof of concept that shows that we can indeed obtain the same shrink wrapping effect of the mesh, but not shrink wrapping the mesh, but its deformed bones. And another thing is that on that rig I had, okay, and then that mesh on the other rig, it was also shrink wrapped. There's another shrink wrap modifier, but inside and from a larger distance behind the eye surface, so that but now no, I don't have this. Now this mesh is controlled by a deformed bone, so wave painting here. So this mesh is controlled by this deformed bone, and these deformed bones, this is its rest position, right? So it starts here anyways, it's not deforming by anyhow, but we are not supposed to pose it, it's like useless. I think it's just meant to create this thickness here, this eyelids border, inner border, right? And then however, this bone is also shrink wrapped, so this shouldn't be required, but actually you see it cannot be pushed inside close to the eye, so this distance will remain the same whatever we do here. This mesh here is not affected by, actually maybe these are, because I've created this later, and this is why the eyelids borders or sometimes disappear, like here starts to, probably because this edge ring here has got wrong waves. Let's see that. A little mistake, but let's see. So there's, yeah, there you see. So to solve this is one of the situations where someone like me that hates normalization and auto-normalize likes auto-normalize. So this is so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to pick this bone. I want this mesh assigned only to this bone and not to anything else, so just get here auto-normalize. And I also need to make sure that yeah, I had a problem because this vertex group was locked, so I couldn't use the auto-normalized, so I had to unlock, because it will destroy the waves on that bone. It's actually a deformed bone, for it would be like the face, the head mesh, right, the head bone, something like that. And then I get here, I have the selection. Let's now, yeah, I don't think that Shift K would work, but maybe it's just something I need to test. So pick one bone like that. Yeah, it doesn't, definitively it paint here, but it didn't apply the auto-normalize. So I don't know, it needs to be this operator set waves doesn't work with auto normalized turned on, like it doesn't. Maybe, yeah, normalize is not the case. There's an operator that normalized, but then what it will do, I think it would make some mean. I want to auto normalize from here. Maybe there is an operator for that, so this will be remove vertical sign which are not required. Active, only for the active group. Okay, no. Invert, no. Mirror, normalized. Okay, there's no normalized waves of the active vertical so that the highest ones are now 1. Did it? There's no option here, so let's see. Yeah, I don't need to take this off, just take the selection so I can switch bones. Okay, now it's red. This is correct. No, it didn't do the normalization. Oh, maybe I have to do it with a selection of bones, right? Let's see. Yeah, a bit hard. Too many bones, right? This is why I don't like this kind of approach. But then let's see. All right, I have this. Should I include these too? No, not sure. Okay, let's try this. Normalized. Nothing happened. Yeah, okay, so never mind. So I don't know if there is a way to automate this. It will be the best thing, but apparently not. So I need to do here, and although these wave scenes are red, they are not normalized, so we're going to do this manually. But because we don't see really what's going on, it's already red. Just to assure I know what's being already painted. Yeah, let's get them to 0. What's happening? Oh, I moved the string. I need to change the waves. So Shift K, and then now yes, we wave paint with auto normalize turned on. Maximum waves. I could do something like that, easier. Alright, now they are normalized, and now this means that here, probably if I swap for this bone, if I swap for this, if I... wrong object. If I swap for this bone, the head bone has lost. It's not good, so I need to give those waves back without auto normalize, but at least this got, yeah, no more connection there. You see. So that's it. So I believe this is what was, and then we pick here. Okay, so since auto normalize don't affect Shift K, right? I don't even need to turn it on, turn it off as I make this selection and do a Shift K on a maximum wave. So at disadvantage that comes with an advantage. Anyways, let's turn it out. So so the proof of concept was that I substitute. I was successful to make. Good morning, Daniel. How are you? I'm making here a proof of concept of an Eyelids rig, a variation of what I knew how to do already with bendy bones and shrink wrap modifier. But here I'm attempting to do something with a method that people use for that it has this multitude of bones, but now instead of using a certain modifier for shrink wrapping this mesh into that curved surface, I'm using bones. So the bones are themselves shrink wrapping to the surface. So for example, this one got the shrink wrap, cannot get away from the eye, and because it is a deformed bone, it holds wave painting on that skin mesh, right? This was made with automatic waves, so I don't have to paint each of them. I could have way more than that. And this is a way it sort of mimics the spline skinning that we can easily make with yeah, that's interesting. I can easily make with bendy bones, or not so easily makeable with spline key bone constraint. So this is a way to emulate spline skinning. That's my take on that, how I see it. And then the cool thing about this is that we can have this control of the deforms here in a very organic way. And bendy bones, spline skinning, spline key can do this kind of things, but they are spline skinning algorithm, and for inside Blender all that works marvelous. So if I have a 3D animation project inside Blender, animating inside Blender, we can use bendy bones, we can use spline skinning, which bendy bones use, we can use object modifiers like shrink wrap modifier. But if we are going to export the project, and recently I was growing more and more wary of that, because as I'm developing skills in this thing, eventually, make a rig for me for a game, animation for a game. Oh yeah, but I only know how to rig for projects inside Blender. No, so it's good to have. So now I've just found a way. Of course, I've seen some references. I've never followed an entire tutorial about this system. There's no, so far I've seen all the tutorial. There's no tutorial on this good one, right? For free, like on YouTube. So far I've seen, least for a nice rig. So maybe this is something I could do, but I don't know the right technique, the conventional techniques. There should be many ways to do it. So in this case, I'm using shrink wrap bone constraint. I don't even know if the guys there use that. I know there's an approach with. So there are many techniques here involved. That's the case, and so maybe someone's this idea of mimicking spline key rigs, spline skinning with linear blend skinning with this approach of multiple bones. This of course I got reference from other rigs, but I never did one myself, and there is requirement of some sort of what I would call a proportional posing control rig or deform rig. So in edit mode we have proportional editing, but we don't have this on pose mode. So this means that if we want to make anything that has some sort of proportional editing thing, I think this only works when the bones are connected. Not sure, let's see. No, I don't even know how to use this for bones. Okay, but it's there on the armature, it should have some value. I don't know how to use it, but I know how to use it certainly on edit mode for the mesh, right? For the mesh it's pretty simple, right? Oh, maybe I missed the... Okay, I see. I missed the... Oh, there's no... there's no area selected. Of course, no. Yeah, I have no idea how this works. No. Okay, sorry, let's read that message. Did you manually assign waves paint to the bones to each verse? I may have to watch this one from the beginning. No, I didn't make the proof of concept here of this rig in this video. I'm just showing it because I'm going to make now attempt a new proof of concept, which would be in between my original Eyelids rig with bendy bones, splines and shrink wrap modifier. So in between that and this, which is radically the other extreme, which has no bendy bone splines, no spline skinning at all, and no shrink wrap modifier for the mesh object, but shrink wrap bone constraint for the deformed bones. So now I want a middle term. This will be this is why I'm doing this video right now. Yes, because there are so many bones, of course. It would be very painful to do this manually. So no, in this case it's very simple. Yes, we could use a sign with automatic weights, a set parent, but don't need to do that. You just have to use this. Sometimes this fails miserably, but in this case I just picked all the bones that are deforming ones, so the red ones and those ones here. Must be on wave paint mode. Of course, the selection of the bones we can do elsewhere. We can do like here. So here, for example, have some bone layer here, and now these are for another. Yeah, so this is for the control rig. Okay, what's happening here? Yes, alright, so this is for the control rig, so I hide everything, I select all, I go back on wave paint mode, and of course they already assign waves, but in principle, let's say I clean everything. No, I want to destroy all the waves. Isn't there clean vertex group, active groups, all groups? They've selected pose bones, yes. Okay, I think I've deleted everything now. I don't really know. Yeah, not a full destruction, but okay, there's no waves there. Apparently, 0 waves everywhere. But usually I do this with just pick here, and the problem is that the bones don't have proper naming. I'll have to rename them. So that will be main, this left, this is very right, and then head, and this behind. Alright, so now I know the vertex groups because they will change names automatically. So let's destroy everything here. Let's lock here. So the other 2 bones, they are control bones, so they don't have waves, and one that I named don't even appear here, left and right, because they, yeah, and the main don't appear here. They don't have vertex groups. So batch delete all unlocked groups. Okay, so now everything deletes. So now it's even, they don't even have black color or blue color. They have, so now bone layer here. So we, yes, must make sure that these bones are not selected from here. Then select only this. Then armature, we see that it's purple, no waves at all there, right? So we pick here waves, assign automatic from waves from these bone selections, and there we go. They all appear here. Should still be good to give names to these bones, so this could be batched in so here it is, and thankfully in this case this works smooth, and apparently here for some reason this is too weak. It was better before, so I don't know why. So maybe sometimes we might have to tweak here and add few waves to this part, but oh, it waves something here. Okay, I know what happened is that when I did the original, I shouldn't have done that, because I already, it's just for presentation, right? But what happens is that there were no waves in here. Actually even these vertices, I think they didn't exist at all when I did the first operation. So what it's doing, it is assign automatics, already taking account waves that were here for the other bone, right? So one bone that is behind, so yeah, this one. So it messed up the auto waves. It still works as but it's a bit, so we might have to make some manual manipulation, but it still works, right? So that's it. Maybe not, maybe smoother than before, maybe it's worse because I wanted more waves here for. So let me load. Yeah, this one. Yeah, so this was the original. The waves there are a bit stronger, so auto waves can be very useful sometimes. Yeah, more waves here, it's important, so that when we push a bone here, it has more pull, and also if we push up, otherwise this bone will have to move way more just to have the. What's happening here? Apparently never mind, don't know what's happening. Let's load here just because it's easier. Alright, so now I'm not sure why. Okay, probably I need to pull these two. Yeah, so it's not as smooth in my opinion, because of course the real another difficulty in this kind of rig, besides setting all these bones, yeah, it's actually an wave painting, but could be done automatically. I think is the best way. Is that we need a proportional posing rig system. And this is at the same time a deform rig property, a deform rigs thing, and a control rig thing. Because those are deformed bones, they should be moving in synchrony and with some. So the difficulty here is that we need to set up a system. The system that I set is very simple, just child of bone constraints, so 2 for each bone usually. So this one targets the main bone. Wait, why it has a. Oh, I didn't save this. This has still old name. Okay, so control main, control left, inner, whatever, control outer, then here is behind, and def head. Alright, and all these others don't matter right now, but we can make some changes here too. So I'm gonna save here so I can. So bones, find replace. So instead of bone, let's give it def eyelid main. Of course it's eyelid top, but doesn't matter. I'm not working here on the bottom. I just need it for the proof of concept to deform the an area like that. Alright, so we got this. And those numbers now, the numbers is something that's very hard to batch rename properly. I don't know how to make it, so strip characters, strip digits and punctuations. So there are 12 of them, but the naming, yeah, they get all bizarre. Okay, so now we pick here and we are going to batch rename these two. So instead of strip character, let's get find replace, so it would be bone, except name now is minor. And yeah, then for the numbers there. Okay, and changing the bones make change to the vertex groups as well, so that's appropriate. Cool, I want to try this. Yes, this is interesting. Eyelids rig is something, there are high demand on that in my opinion, and not a lot of good tutorials on this matter. Actually there are interesting tutorials, but actually there are many cases and approach to eyelids rig. So in this case this is very good because the eye surface is not as a perfect sphere. This is why shrink wrapping features, whether from object modifier or bone constraint, can be handy. And so the child of bone constraints here, so there's one for the main. So each one, the main control all the bones, but on different values. So the center one has a 100 influence. All things is need to set inverse for everything. Sometimes need to do that manually, otherwise the bones get crazy. So for example this, I don't understand this thing, but then we need to do it for each one, so it's not very good. But the good thing of child of bone constraint is that yes, we can have many. It's like a parenting offset, except that with influence, and we can have multiple fake parents for the same bone. So that's why this one has this one for example has, the first one is here, but the influence is very small, so I've reproduced here so they have the same, so I used some symmetry here so I pick those two. With alt I give some value here, and then it stacks to both. Then I get those two here, find their adequate one and set something here for both, and then here. So each of them, they are pairs. So maybe their naming could be paired in some way, so it will be easier to organize. Is the first one, good to keep this organized. The shrink wrap bone constraint needs to go after, otherwise things go crazy. Yeah, usually it's better that it goes after. So first it child offs, and at the end it shrink wraps. And it's not perfect, but it's logic. These things make it safer. In my experience, that's how it works. So we might have, so we make sets. So this one has, as we can see, the bones that are moving are probably the ones which has the secondary child of bone constraint targeting control alter, which is this one. So this influence, for example, is this. This influence is that, and this influence is, and then this is also sort of mirrored, equivalent, right? Equal, except that just change the target. So the target here is control inner, the target here is control outer, and always set inverse, yes, on rest pose apparently. No, don't know, so never mind, but always set inverse for apparently needs to be done individually if they have a wrong offsetting. Hello, Eyelids, how are you? Welcome back. Without me there's no one here to like oh yes, thanks for stream. What kind of friends do you have if some guy from Russia supports you more than them? Oh yes, I have a few friends, yes, but currently yeah, I don't understand the joke. Thanks for participating here. Very cool to have friends looking for sharing and learning stuff in Blender. Rigging is like a bit solitary domain, right? Animation, we could say a little about animation, but I think rig is something that there are a few people, right? Few people. That's why my channel perhaps don't have a lot of people also. It's a rigging channel. Who wants to... No, most people that I know, or at least is extremely common, you know that probably already. Most people flee away from rigging. No one wants to talk about rigging. No, rigging, just do the rigging for me. That's it. Rigging is like a nightmare. I understand perfectly because I've been learning rigging on the internet, right, for about 2 years now, and I've been through very complicated moments. But now I'm in a good shape. I survived, and we can do a lot of things. Rigging is pretty cool, so it pays off learning rigging, at least artistically speaking, technically, right? But professionally, yes, need to professionalize. The demand exists, so I'm looking for some activity out there, some jobs, some stuff like that. We'll see how it goes. Anyways, but my channel continues, and the experiment. I'm sort of an experimenting guy, right? So I think just like you, right? We like to see original stuff going on. We like to understand how things work. So like learners, right? So this proof of concept. Yes, so this is one extreme. The other extreme was my original... Oh, by the way, Alotsky, this is... I'm going back to mount rigging, except that I needed to make a new proof of concept here today. And there will be time, I think I can complete this today, perhaps even right now. And then later on I come back with the continuation, the mount rigging, right? Okay, I will have... Let's start the proof of concept from now. So I was explaining how this system works. This uses no bendy bones splines, so this is a pure LBS, linear blend skinning rig system. Like, for example, here, if you check the armature, this option here, armature modifier for the object that is parented to the armature object, so this one, it's in armature deform system, right? If you check this preserve volume, this shifts the whole rig to an armature deform system, the dual quaternion skinning method, which is a bit more smooth and less artifacts generating than the conventional linear blend skinning. We don't see it, but without it, with preserve volume unchecked, this is linear blend skinning method, and it's the most conventional skinning algorithms in CG. It exists for decades, I think. And dual quaternion skinning method is a bit more sophisticated, but it has a problem regarding the bone's rotation. It's the only problem, otherwise it's better than the other. So there is an amount of rotation here. You see this warping of the mesh. This is the problem with dual quaternion skinning. At some point, if it warps at a rotation of 180 degrees, it will break the rig. So when radiance here is equal to 1, there you go, says destroy everything. So this I didn't know, so very important. If I was using this for my rigs, my characters, and then suddenly I was attempting to make large rotations like leg rigging, right? The type with front and back rotation, because I was using preserve volume dual quaternion skinning and didn't know about this feature, this problem of this skinning method. I was having huge artifacts at that rotation, excessive rotation. And spline skinning with bendy bones is another skinning method that Blender possesses, and perhaps some other certain game engines possess. Bendy bones only work in Blender, but then in Blender if we cannot use bendy bones for spline skinning, we can still use spline IK bone constraint, which use a curve object, and yes, it's spline skinning. But the problem is that although we can export the curve object and the rig, if the condition, of course, for spline skinning to work elsewhere is that it is done with a method that is exportable, so spline IK rig, bendy bones rig don't work, because bendy bones is inbuilt system for Blender only, it only works inside Blender. But because bendy bones work with spline skinning, some aspect of bendy bones, yeah, anyways, the fact is that I've lost my line of thought, but what I wanted to say is that the spline skinning, hold on, I need to think where I was at. Bendy bones, spline IK bone constraint, and the skinning method. Okay, so this method here, there's a great advantage in terms of versatility. It sort of does smooth deforms, so just as spline skinning for these curves here. It's a bit annoying to set up, but not that complicated, found out. And this is totally exportable. We just have to like export, bake the animation, like make an animation for these bones, something like that. So here I make an animation, and these keyframes, because it's all about bones, bone constraints, and even the shrink wrapping system is through bone constraint, right, shrink wrap of the deformed bones themselves. So this mapping of the bones movement, they will be baked in a 3D animation context. So it would be something like that. Where do we bake things? I think it's pose, bake animation, somewhere like. I rarely do. This is not the animation, bake action. Okay, it's action. So here I'll be creating should be using the action editor instead, right? To be clearer about this, so it will be, so dope sheet editor, and then the action editor, And okay, so we create an action here. Okay, it's a new action, armature action, whatever, new action. This is very complicated to use actually. So here we bake the animation, bake the action, right, inside the animation. Then pose, where animation, bake action, frame from 1 to 100. Yeah, that's it. That's this limit I put there. Only selected bones. Yeah, those options. Yeah, whatever, everything though. And now all the poses on every single frame has turned into an input, unique input. And so because these hold, each of these bones hold the form factor, it's like an analysis of the whole transforms that are happening here. It's not the object modifiers which are okay, the subdivisions, we can apply that. This will be applied in exporting, and so this will export the motion. We export the animation really, and not the rig itself. We export the armature, and the mesh is independent from the armature. The mesh just responds to conventional linear blend skinning according to the movement of the bones in space, independently of whatever rig it had. Doesn't matter. It's the animation of the bones. It's no more anything baked animation, no more something about the bone constraints. So there's a baking thing here. We can just destroy, I think I saw it. Clear constraints, yeah, it will bake and clear everything, clear parents, clean curves, yeah. And so pure animation, pure individual bones moving in space and holding and pulling, deforming the mesh in like a tissue snapped to pin to some stuff, right? So this is a more versatile method, doesn't use any advanced stuff like, so it would work elsewhere. Alright, I think I've got that explained somewhat. Thanks again, I have to run to a work meeting, I'll catch you next time. Oh yes, so thanks Dan Jung, so feel free to come back. I'm certainly going to be doing all this thing. Yeah, this will be recorded, and then I hope to be able to go back to the mouth rigging stuff later today. Okay, let's go for the proof of concept here, because I'm tired of this. I'm going to make, I've seen enough, this works, and that's great. Now let's see, I should make a tutorial how to do that. With a few more things. So I'm gonna make a new version of that. So, and this time I'm going to attempt something slightly different. Instead of all these bones, yes, I'll delete all that because we won't use anything. We'll still use this probably. Okay, so this will be useful, this will be useful. All this structure will be useful, but we need now to... I want to do the same thing, the same shrink wrapping thing that I still have here. So this bone is... it's shrink wrapped in a certain way, it's inside, so it cannot push it to the other side. Yeah, and nearest surface point, right, there's a certain distance. I put it in just a distance where its rest position is here. I've just set it in a distance that is 0.5 meters. It would be something around here. So it doesn't transform automatically if I disable enable, so it stays in place, but I cannot push it. Yeah, you see I can push it outside but not inside, and so this is what is good. So this is 0.5 meters from inside that the normals of this mesh. So this is to create the eyelids border, which is there. And because I've destroyed the other rig, the mesh here is just snapped onto the eye surface. It's just snapping here, but it's not any motion here will change. Any bone that I make here, the form bone, will push the mesh in away or interpenetrate with the eye or whatever. So I'll have to create the system with bendy bones, which I know how to do it. Hard to explain the process without contextualizing the other rig, but we'll see. Okay, with bendy bones. So I'll snap this I hide this object. I'll start by creating the bones for the bendy bone sets. For this I'm going to change this thing to in front, and I want to have B-bone. Alright, this will give this visualization of the bones, which is usually better for working on certain rigs, especially bendy bones, of course. Spline skinning also with spline and keyboard consider. Okay, so I'm going to snap this thing onto the surface, I guess. Yes, I'm not exactly sure how should I. Oh, just got the idea. Of course. Okay, just got an idea. Something I was looking for, right? So this would be this would be a tip bone. So, and this would be. All right. So we're going to make this parent even. Parent offset, otherwise it would go there, right? But no, we want. Okay, so we start by snapping this, then we pick this, we parent offset, disconnect. Let's turn on the screencast. So this will be the start handle. Could be, yeah, B-bone handler 001, whatever. Then these are already snapped, so we'll organize this in this way. Put the cursor there and snap this to cursor. Okay. Now I don't touch this nor this, although I can still perhaps align this to this. Then I make a copy of this. Then let's try to. I think this is the correct. Okay, I need to. Let's try with one spline. Like, let's start simple. Alright, I believe this is snapped. Did that preserve the size of this bone? Length? No, it didn't. So anyways, let's give it length of 2, length of 2. Then let's align here with here. The orientation here we don't care about right now. We duplicate this. We change the parent offset to that. This, okay, this is already good name, so this is actually control, and this could be whatever, main, handle, whatever, 001, main eyelid, right? And this main eyelid 002. All right, then here we pick this and snap here, except that, yes, I see. So yes, exactly that. I'm going to snap this there, but with some, so now this is where, yeah, it's head. So if I pose this, it will carry that bone from its head. Same here. So I was lacking this structure here, so very simple structure, but yeah. So the bones, the splines will go that way. Oh, right. So now we go here. From this I extrude. Let's reduce this thing and let's snap. Yeah, okay, it's parent, so parent offset first thing. Alt P to reduce the parenting stuff. Disconnect, because it was already parented. Instead of snapping, we just pick this and go to the same thing. This is too large, let's reduce, and now let's give it some segmentations, like 8, 10. Okay, 10 should be enough. Then we need to create the stuff here, so tangent, again, this, and tangent Bendibone 2. What is Bendibone 3? Looks like, oh, Bendibone 3. Okay, so this is wrong. This is just Bendibone. Alright, so the problem here, okay, so this, hold on, first let's conclude this. This is a deformed bone. These are non-deformed bones. Take off deform feature. This is a deformed bone, this is a deformed bone. Okay. And so the problem here, in relation, apparently everything looks to be going well, but there's a big problem in this approach, is that I only have one bone, the bendy bone, as a deformed bone, just one spline, and oh, I see, this rotates but doesn't. Okay, still needs some setup here, so let's do this stretch to bone constraint thing, and let's see here. That's set, nothing else to do here, so now it deforms here, now it deforms here. So okay, now this works. It's just the stretch to that was lacking. Okay, so here is the problem with this approach. The bone, this is what I want to solve in this proof of concept. If this works, this will be fascinating, like Spock says, fascinating, because it will be an in-between method between what I've been doing with for Eyelids rig on my original character there, that use spline skinning with spline skinning with bendy bones, which uses shrink wrapping stuff, but not from bone constraints, but for as a mesh object as an object modifier, and this will be without object modifier for shrink wrapping. Instead, it will shrink wrapping a vertex group like the eyelids mesh part only. So this will be using all the shrink wrapping features but from bone constraints, and this allows baking and exporting. The modifier themselves, although we can bake the animation, we cannot bake the mesh, and that's the problem. We can keyframe the transforming bones, their positions, but we cannot bake the positions of the mesh itself as it deforms. We cannot bake we cannot record the ideal deformation of the forms of the mesh object. And so the object modifiers, as we export, at least on the methods that I've heard, wavefront object obj, right? It will apply all the modifiers. This armature modifier is okay because if the animations are baked, right, we have the armature already did what it had to do for the bones position in world space. But the other modifiers, they die off. So whatever stuff that are, this will be applied, so this is fine. We should perhaps even apply it before baking. I don't know the details, but those two, if they are applied during exporting, should be fine. So no big. But the others like shrink wrap, as they get applied, they lose the shrink wrapping functionality, and the bones won't be there with their shrink wrapping features because we're not using this. We would not be using this. Then those the mesh, the shrink wrapping feature will die off, will disappear, and the mesh will not respond anymore elsewhere outside of Blender, because there won't be any feature like that to compensate for that, to reproduce that feature. So in this case, I'm making a workaround for the object modifiers, and so turning this thing more versatile. The problem, now comes very complicated problem, is that the bendy bone, differently from the other thing here, these are individual bones and deformed bones, and they are all sort of a segmentation, right? But they are all pointing up. Their wave painting is local, like that, very simple. And as each one moves, yes, they will make certain organized deforms, and each of them shrink wraps individually. Shrink wrap here. So first they copy those child of stuff. So first they are deformed by those bones, and then they got shrink wrapped. And so they keep shrink wrapping. All of them, they keep shrink wrapping. And this means that because they are deformed bones, their positions in world space in relation to the eye surface will always be accurate. And so because the mesh is bound to them, the mesh also won't interpenetrate. It will, because it is following the bone, and the bone is following the surface of the eye. In the case of here, I have a problem that I want to know if there's a way to fix it. The bendy bone is just one bone. it has this orientation, but it doesn't really matter. I think it doesn't really, well, actually it matters. So it has this orientation, but it will shrink wrapped from its head. So this part will be shrink wrapped and this part won't. But this part we can solve easily. We just have to perhaps shrink wrap this one, right? And this one, because these joints here, the start and the head and tail of the bendy bone, so these circles here, head and tail of the bendy bone, they they are the same location of this as this joint, and so they will be snapping all the time because of how bendy bones work. So it's easy to shrink wrap the joints. But what about the center? The center, because we have this, the center doesn't have any structure. These are segments. We cannot have them shrink wrapping to the eye surface because this is a spline that is respecting this curve, and then we can make this curve, and then if the mesh that is deforming through this bendy bone spline, this bone, it will tend to do this curve, and then we got interpenetrations. Then we have to, this could be avoided perhaps if we make very careful rotations here that won't make some rotation of the bone go like something like that, right? But then sometimes we want something, a curve like that, but then we need to respect, and so this is not very good for automation, but we'll see how that turns out. I am not confident that I will find a good solution, but I'm confident that this should be a very interesting experiment, and there are many chances, there are good chances this will work out, even if perhaps we'll have to make a lot of attempts. So here I'm just looking at the mesh, right, that I want to wave paint. So it'd be, I think it would be material, okay, right? So select by, link it by material. Let's this be our, let's this be our protected mesh for wave painting this. So let's start, yeah, let's add maximum waves there. I'm just making this with one spline, and we'll see how this turns out. Then here we can already start giving some waves like that, and the rest I believe we can start blurring. And here okay, this should be enough. Maybe one thing that I thought would be unfortunate, but perhaps to solve or to improve this difficulty of shrink wrapping the bendy bone as a whole would be to have lot of tiny splines of bendy bones, like just as the other rig, right? So that we have easier way making the smooth curve without lot of crazy rotations of the bendy bones, right? So let's see now what. Okay, there's another thing here. I still don't have the shrink wrap. Okay, there's no shrink wrap features yet, and we're not gonna make shrink wrapping from object modifiers. It would be too easy, right? but this is the problem, it's too easy for Blender. Outside of Blender this might not be so easy, so might not be even available. So shrink wrap, for example, if I did that with an object modifier, it would be something like that. I pick the, okay, same thing for here, so the eyelids, then we create this as a vertex group, so like mod or modifier, shrink wrap eyelids, then assign maximum value there, and in principle okay, I need to target, so on surface, no, above surface or outside surface, I don't remember. Anyways, we give an offset already of this. We target the modifier vertex group that we've just created, and then we target this, the vertex group from the original, yeah, the mesh, the skin that we are in, that contains the modifiers here. So this contains these modifiers, so this is from the object itself, and this is the target object, which will be the eye. And there we go. So this is pretty easy, right? This is what my method, my original method. So here we can do whatever we want with the bendy bones, and then we have crazy shapes. It's very simple, right? The problem is that yeah, this is shrink wrap modifier, and this doesn't export properly. So I'm not gonna delete it, it's good for examples, but we are yeah, so here we need another method of shrink wrapping and on the bones, right? So let's see, let's start this already. Because this is parented, maybe I just need to shrink wrap this thing. Yes or not? Okay, let's try this one. It will save us time, but I'm very curious first. Okay, let's do the shrink wrap part, that's because I believe that will be required. So outside surface, distance, let's start 0 first, then near surface point, target this, and apparently okay, it is shrink wrapping. I cannot pose it anyways, it's surfing onto the object there, fine, and I can make the rotations here, but it's too close, so let's give it some. Alright, okay, we see that this already starts to have an effect. This is getting interesting. I think this will going to work. Let's just copy. Aha! I'm surprised. Okay, so unfortunately we can make this is not necessarily bad, but you see it's okay. Actually this is much okay, so then I'm posing the wrong bones. Hold on, we don't want these things to move anyways from themselves, and nor this one, so let's lock this. Alright, so just have this tip here. This is incredible. I'm in awe. So it works. There are interpenetrations as expected, but controlling them is much easier than I thought, and the deforms are spline skinning, so you see the quality of the... Don't need all that bones. Wow, no, this is just fascinating. And the good thing is that we could still use, instead of a bendy bone here, bendy bone spline, we could attempt to use the other spline skinning technique, which is with spline IK bone constraint. I'm not going to show this, is too annoying, too complicated to set up, even though I have an add-on that automates that, but it's a bit too confusing. I don't remember exactly how to set it up to be too much waste of time for this presentation. So, but my intention here is to try to improve this even more. So this is incredible. This is like a game changer for me. It's like I could make a tutorial about that even. I have multiple methods that do this eyelids skinning. It's dynamic eyelids rig. It's dynamic rig because we can pose all the expressions, not even need of shape keys, which are very powerful, but they are very mechanical, right? It's like, you shape, they are linear also, so there are a lot of things they do not do very well. They are not very versatile, I mean, also. This is one of the biggest problems in Blender. They are not very versatile. They are very annoying to set up also. I don't hate shape keys. I recognize sometimes they are the ultimate, the last resort we have, and they work for exporting, so this is pretty valuable. And there are add-ons that make them easier to use and empowers them, so this is very cool. But I try to avoid shape keys for one main reason. Actually, they make that the object modifiers, we cannot apply them unless we use another add-on. That's crazy thing for me. It makes no sense at all, and so I avoid them. But at this stage I probably would have tools to implement them on my rigs too, so they are very good for certain corrective methods. Alright, so I didn't finish this off, so because there are more things I want to try. So for now, let's take this off. I want to know what happens if I shrink wrap the bendy bone instead. The bendy bone is shrink wrapped. Okay, so what does that mean? I want to understand this. This is not shrink wrapped, okay. This is locked, so let's unlock this for now so we can make tests. The bendy bone is shrink wrapped on a certain distance. No, on 0 distance. Alright. Outside surface, fine. It cannot respond. Oh, I see. I destroyed the... So first stretch 2, and then shrink wrap. Is that the proper order? Let's see. Okay, so I see it is shrink wrapped. Actually stretch 2 later in this case. Okay, alright. So what's happened here? First the shrink wrap. Oh, I see. It's the base, is the head. There's no header here. There's no slider button here to change this feature. So it's indeed is the head of the bendy bone which shrink wraps. Okay, so this is huge limitation. But yeah, so and this aligned, so this will be crazy. Yeah, this doesn't even work, right? Outside surface, inside, no, outside, no, that doesn't, outside surface for now. So okay, note this. So it shouldn't shrink wrap, this is too bizarre, just delete. But we could, it's just, yeah, it's just the head, and we can't shrink wrap the segments. I know there would be a crazy method here. Yeah, there exists a crazy thing. No, it's too... never mind. There is this feature here. Follow B-bone. So follow shape of B-bone segment when calculating head-tail position. So this means that this is a feature that we use for advanced bendy bones rig when we can track the segmentation. So we can track this, the middle of some point here in the middle of the spline. Of course, this is not the this is not what I mean, but this serves to track head and tail of the bendy bone. So this means, for example, what came to my mind, if I had another bendy bone, like that sort of spline, that sort of tracked the curve of the eye, and I use this as a reference for the mesh. I don't know, yeah, it makes no sense. Copy location, for example. It's not a... Okay, let's say this target. Then we can use this, you see, to track that curve. Yeah, so the example works, figurative to understand, right? So it tracks, you see, it is tracking a curve. But unfortunately, this is just one example. Probably other bone constraints have this. I need to investigate. And so what it could do is that we could probably use this as a mechanism. I don't know how to use it properly in this case, because I don't... The three axes are involved in this mapping. There is this, and we don't see exactly what is the target, worst space, local space. It will rely on the orientation, so it probably be using the y-axis. The y, it's not about x-axis, it's just y and z. So this means that, of course, I'd need probably, if I want to map like a grid, it will be a grid armature skeletal map of the eye curve surface. So this is totally crazy, and but it would work theoretically, because I could map the mesh positions with bones. This is like, and then if I have here, it is mapping, even though it's not copying the X relative to the target. So this gizmo here. So it's not about going up and down here, X, whatever, this orientation, this direction here, so nothing about this orientation. It's about those two, so up and yeah, so length and up. So this will create the curve in 2 dimensions, right? Like we see here. But then we need many of those bendy bones on this layered, right? This doesn't solve nothing because I don't have a bone constraint to, I don't know which bone constraint I could use to, and so this means that in certain sense it could work at some sort of, not a shrink wrapping method, but yeah, it will be a shrink wrap. It will always follow, always be on a certain, yeah, but that, anyways, I really don't, this requires a lot more thinking, but interesting proposition. For now, let's see what we can go back with this. So we had this thing working, we tried the shrink wrap to the bendy bone, but it's crazy. So now let's try the shrink wrap to this instead of this. So I'm just gonna pick this and copy, actually pick this and copy, then I'm going to enable these ones. What we see already is that the bendy bones get displaced on a fair distance, because that is too much. We need to like give it 0.02, maybe 0.05, all right, just to here. This is very interesting now, that's why I was wanting to test with this. Their orientation now, Z pointing up. Yes, this Z-axis is for this bone, the end handle, and this Z-axis is for, so they are more or less pointing upwards. This, if I align these two, there, I'm thinking maybe it's the y-axis. Yes, so the z-axis would be bad, because if I did that, okay, I have this, but then alright, it seems to be the bone is shrink wrapping, and it keeps, oh, the Z is aligned, okay, it's rotated it, so maybe, no, let's go the, okay, so this is actually the, hold on, positive Y, this should be, and this is the negative Y, I guess. Apparently no, this is the wrong, oh, okay, look, this is how they, this is the align to normal, so it's not along the y-axis, like y-axis. So does that work for deforms? Well, no, we have this and this, but we lack, yeah, this alignment breaks all rotations for the, it just lets us rotate, right? And it creates this massive mesh going up, so it's not really, maybe it can work if we had another spline there, but it's very bizarre because it creates all this bulge. Yeah, so nonetheless, this is interesting. This is something I haven't thought about, but yeah, we lack transforms. We need at least two axes moving. So no alignment to y-axis, but what about, what would be alignment to, for this one, let's see. Okay, this is the, it keeps aligned to z-axis, right? That's it. So it's z-axis alignment. This allows that, yeah, as I rotate here, this is more like it. So this is, of course, let's give it some thing like that, but then this alignment will complicate stuff because we cannot make compensation. So because it's a curved surface, as we rotate here, more and more of the mesh there eventually, unless we do this, but if this will eventually cause this thing, right? The spline gets, of course you have to check for both. So probably here is also the z-axis, and need also to increase here. We shouldn't be increasing this a lot because, okay, we see that we can avoid certain amount of interpenetrations by augmenting that distance outside surface and nearest surface point, but yeah, we lose many possibilities of rolling this bone. So currently it cannot rotate on its x-axis apparently. Yeah, cannot rotate on the x-axis, is locked, and the y-axis is locked too. It's just the z-axis that is left, and also some, yeah. So this is interesting, but it's limiting. It limits too much the power for the bendy bone to rotate, but it keeps, at least it keeps the mesh in, let's say, yeah, you can do all this with this bone. It's not bad, actually it works, but yeah, I think it's a bit limiting. It's quite good actually. So we can use that, but we need to be a bit careful. There are many limitations. So if we did this, we could do the same for this, and in this case we'd align it with its y-axis. So it will be like, here we align with y-axis, and there'll be a similar effect. And so we have this rolling here, and we have some movements here to do, but you see how the bone we cannot. Now I'd like to diminish this rotation, but I can't because of this align to normal. So we better not use this, but it's interesting nonetheless. But for this case, it means problems. So here you see the amount of possibilities we have. It's much more. We are freer to make the transforms. Yeah, this is already very good. I think this is it. I don't see any particular need to. The rest is more spline, is wave painting, more subdivisions as you mentioned, and melt rig, so better wave painting. With just one spline you get all that. Yeah. Maybe I have another last proposition to think about, but in this case it's clear we want to have this kind of freedom for the bendy bone spline. Otherwise, yeah, it's about expressions. So it's good to have some flexibility. Sometimes interpenetrations occur, and these could also be, we could probably in this case also be able to solve with perhaps more wave painting. Let's check this out, right? So here I'm going to improve the waves here and the corners. I don't know why this corner is so stiff. It's the rest. It just as it starts. It's its rest position. So it's character design stuff. We can easily solve that. Not the problem here. So yes. So wave painting. Let's see. Then smooth here. Let's see. Yeah, less interpenetrations there. I apparently so moving the wrong bone. Yeah, this is incredible, folks. Okay, here of course this bone is not supposed to go in that direction. So of course with just one spline here we lose, yeah, we eventually will have some interpenetrations, which will be harder to control with a single spline. More advanced system, an additional spline here. Well, same thing, the same structure here of shrink wrapping shouldn't be a problem, should still work. And then with an additional spline here, we'd be able to manipulate that hypothetical extra spline there, handle, and then we can solve this rotation in a way that it will it will be easier to prevent, to solve this thing like on manual. We have many ways to control the mesh, additional ways. So I believe for eyelids I've been using 2 splines for the top and bottom, so good. It will be good to have a subdivision here, but if we want to keep simple, that should be good enough, provide the rest position for the mesh is also good enough. So my attempt here for this proof of concept worked. So this is incredible. There are now, I know, 3 methods that seem to work for this thing. Yeah, I definitely should make a tutorial, but those live streaming are available anyway, so they already serve as a content. I think now I should stop this. I need to make a pause, and then we'll be back with mount rigging, right? Any questions, any idea? What do you think about this thing? This is really interesting, I think. I've never done this before, so in this way I didn't know it was possible, so a proof of concept. I know someone that is making facial rigging in a forum, Blender Artist forum. I occasionally chat with person, and we often talk about bendy bones stuff, and I told him or her, I'm not sure, months ago, a couple of months ago, that I was going to make a test. Because he was making a face rig with bendy bones for furry characters, so very expressive requirements. And so he was using bendy bone splines, but he wasn't using object modifier, shrink wrap modifier, and he wasn't also using shrink wrap bone constraints. So I told you, maybe what you're doing with bones can work with shrink wrap bone constraints the way I do. So I told him I'd make some tests, and there it is, the test. Besides the previous one, right here, that is another alternative to that, which is much simpler in the sense of the resources, right? No spline skinning here, just linear blend skinning, and it also works. It's annoying to set those things. I don't know the best solution for this automation, but basically it's a proportional editing for armature, but on pose mode, so proportional posing. In this case, I've decided to use two child-off bone constraints for each one. So for example, maybe you've already seen that, but anyways, I was showing to Jung. It was nearly the time when you arrived. These deformed bones are shrink wrapped, same thing. They are not bendy bones, they are pointing up like that. And for example, this one has a child off. All of them have the first child off targeting this main control main, so they all move in sync. Oh, actually, I could. Okay, no, let's not make relation between this and this. It's just this individually. Although we can pose them all at the same time. This moves the ones on the left side and these on the right side. So this means that these bones have an additional child off bone constraint, but towards this, and these ones towards this. This I was lazy, I didn't add, but I should add perhaps to this. So it's difficult to make so many bone constraints. Of course we can work on multi-selection, but there are limitations to that, so they're sort of mirrored to simplify. So they hold the same value here, just they are working pairs. Apparently not this one, no, it's because this is the panel, and here, so it's a gradation, right? As long as they get closer to the main, start to get until it goes to maximum influence. And there should be other setups. So okay, that's it, I think, for this. We were successful, certainly. So this is why experimental rigging often pays off, although it takes time. So here, this proof of concept also was successful, so this is extremely valuable. And I forgot I remembered. So probably more stuff can be built on top of this, which is already working. I'm not sure what could be implemented next to improve this, but certainly there would be ways. Certainly artistically, what I would do certainly would add another spline in the middle, so I don't even need to test this as a proof of concept, because just having done this is logically it works good enough, well enough. So this was the proof of concept. bendy bone splines with shrink wrap bone constraints work on an eyelids rig do not require imperatively to use the shrink wrap object modifier alternative, which is much simpler. You can use them together, but it will be like yeah, we can use this together, but it's like stacking the features, but don't really look required. If we can, yes, why not? But if we have the shrink wrapping mesh, we don't need the shrink wrapping structure here. We can make other things here for the bendy bone spline. For example, we can use these shrink wraps here to just have the bones floating more up, but it is not necessarily valuable. So yeah, in my opinion, there's no need to stack the functionalities. Either use one or the other. They're not great beneficials, although if you can use the object, this one as modifier, shrink wrap modifier, this certainly can, this is more reliable, but it can cause some bugs also. This I showcased in some tutorial, so it can also create some complications. The shrink wrap bone constraint also can create complications, but here they were just fine. And that's it, folks. If you're still watching, so thanks again for participation. Glad to have you around, and yeah, time for a break, and then I will go back certainly for our mouth rigging stuff. I've been thinking on the next steps, and I'm taking seriously I've checked many meshes, and I really start to take seriously the more subdivisions here, indeed, for the cartoony expressions that I want to do. Maybe a lot more. Yeah, I've got some insight in this. Very important, your participation. I hope you're learning something in the way. So that's it, folks. See you soon. Take care and happy blending as always.